Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And, well, this didn't take very long, did it? Jacob Rees-Mogg's plan to get MPs back physically into Parliament, which was noted as a ridiculous idea at the time, looks like it may have gone sour almost immediately as the business secretary, Alok Sharma, is being tested for COVID. He came down ill yesterday in Parliament, where, of course, he was in close contact with a lot of other MPs, never mind this rubbish about them distancing. So that's what I want to talk about this morning. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, yeah, I remember, and let's just keep this into context, the reason why the government, Jacob Rees-Mogg, it's not necessarily his idea, this is the government, he's just acting on behalf of the government, but obviously he is also responsible, wanted to get MPs physically into Parliament, even though they can do everything remotely. They've been doing that over the last month or two anyway, and it's been working fine. Was purely to try and bolster Boris Johnson in Prime Minister's questions. That was the thing. He wasn't that bothered about MPs voting in person, as far as I could tell. He just wanted them crowding behind Boris Johnson so that he could, have them braying behind him, making him seem a little less useless. But that can't happen anyway, because the government have no real say over that one. The House of Commons itself, the Speaker, and people who decide on Commons procedures have said, no, we can have a maximum of 50 MPs in the chamber. So this was really done out of pure spite. And as was obvious at the time, it does two very harmful things. First of all, at a time when you're trying to tell the members of the public to socially distance, you've got MPs who are not doing. And this, by the way, isn't all on the part of the government. There's been a number of MPs who have not been, towing the line, so to speak. I nearly said towing the party line, but that's not really appropriate in this context. There have been MPs, of course, in multiple parties, not following social distancing, even boasting about it. But the fact that here you had the government telling MPs, so you can't just blame an individual MP because they've been told they have to descend upon Parliament. And now what has happened is a government minister became ill yesterday in Parliament. And it's not, when I saw this and we were saying, we said this would very likely happen, and people going, oh no, because he can't have caught corona from going into Parliament. And they're missing the point entirely. No, we know that. And at the point at which I'm doing this, his test results haven't come back yet. He's been tested for COVID. We might expect the results to come out maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. And hopefully it'll be negative. But it could be positive. And if it's positive, he has been in contact, because for all these ludicrous attempts at social distancing, MPs weren't distancing. Apart from anything else, you look at the picture here in the queue, they're not 2 metres apart. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is there were various choke points where they're moving in and out of the chamber, or moving in and out of Portcullis House, or any other part of the Palace of Westminster, where MPs were coming very, very close to one another. And I discussed this before as well. They were not distancing. So Alok Sharma, if he does test positive, we hope he doesn't, but if he does, he could potentially have infected hundreds of MPs. But the thing is, it actually doesn't matter whether he tests positive or not, because what's happening, this is the utter insanity of it. MPs are now starting, even some MPs who voted for this are saying how ridiculous this is and we should go back to the virtual Parliament. And I'm reading in the right, and this is the right-wing press. You would expect the left-wing press to be attacking this because they were never in favour of abolishing the virtual Parliament in the first place. The right-wing press weren't necessarily in favour of it, but they're in favour of the Conservatives, so they'll go along with the Conservatives' plans to a large degree. And they're reporting that Conservative MPs, are putting pressure on Jacob Rees-Mogg to do something about this. And it's like, you guys voted for it. You didn't have to. But what makes me really disappointed, more than anything else, I'd like to say like frustrated or angry, but just really disappointed, is MPs who 2 days ago voted for this are now saying to Jacob Rees-Mogg, this was a stupid idea, why are you doing it? And it's like, and because of this, because someone has become ill, could be ill with COVID and may have passed it to them. They're thinking now about themselves. And it's a bit like, so what's the difference from 2 days ago? because 2 days ago, for all you knew, someone in Parliament was infected. Remember, the majority of people who become infected with COVID do not display symptoms. We know this. This is one of the more dangerous aspects of it. It's ironically what makes people think it's not as dangerous as some other viruses like Ebola, because most people get away with it. If they become infected, they don't actually suffer any symptoms. That means they're fighting it off, or that means it's less harmful. No, that makes it more harmful, because it means people are out and about right now infected, having no idea they're infectious, passing it to others, and of course inevitably down the line passing it to someone who then will develop symptoms and become seriously ill, and as we're finding out hundreds of times a day, dying. And you know, and you think to yourself, so let's follow this through. So let's say he's positive. Okay, he may not be, but let's say he is. So then let's imagine it's very likely he's passed that infection on to other MPs. So let's say one of those MPs then in 2 or 3 weeks time develops symptoms and tests positive. This action now, because it's totally unnecessary as well, and I cannot emphasise that enough, this was not necessary. This isn't like there wasn't any other way to carry out parliamentary business. Parliamentary business is really, really important. If there was no other way, you would sort of understand they're trying their best. There was, and it was working, and that is what makes this particularly egregious. So in 2 or 3 weeks' time, if an MP comes down with it, they may well link it to that, and they're going, well, that's stupid, you've now given it to me. Then let's say an MP becomes seriously ill. Like Boris Johnson became seriously ill, for example. Let's say that happens. Let's say a particular MP isn't as lucky as Boris Johnson and doesn't have 2 foreign nurses to watch over him constantly. What then? You know, how is this helping the Conservative government look better in the public eye if, as a direct result of this spiteful, unnecessary action, Jacob Rees-Mogg and the government ends up killing an MP? What then? And this isn't like a ridiculous sequence of events to imagine. All we have to imagine is that Alok Sharma, who is ill with COVID, and then that he'll have passed it to others. That's almost inevitable. If he's infectious, he's almost inevitably infected others. I mean, apart from the wider thing that should mean that all MPs now have to isolate. Never mind Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, oh no, we don't have to because we distanced. No, you didn't distance. There's lots of footage showing you were not distancing. You know, but that's not going to help someone if they become ill, just you saying you were distancing. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'll tell you another thing. So if he tests positive, that means all MPs that were anywhere near him, and they may not have known that, so it should really just be any MP who was in Parliament on either Tuesday or Wednesday, should isolate. And if they don't, do you know what this looks like? Because if you or I were to be rung up by the tracing team and said, you've been in contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID, you need to self-isolate for 14 days. If MPs don't do that, and if the government say MPs don't need to do that, do you know what that looks like? That looks like one rule for them, another rule for the rest of us. It's just as well the government haven't been in trouble recently for something like that, otherwise it might look really bad in the public eye. And that's, you know, another thing that really gets me, and I don't... If you're a Conservative supporter, you must be apoplectic at the moment, because you're thinking to yourself, hang on a minute, how are you getting these things badly wrong? Because again, I'll say it again, the government have made no gains out of this. Forcing MPs physically back to Parliament has not benefited them in the slightest. It hasn't got them to be able to pack out the Commons debating chamber and cheer on Boris Johnson, because they're still not allowed to do that. It hasn't gained them anything. It just makes them look worse. And as I say, you know, in some ways this may all blow over if it just turns out he's got a cold. But if it is more serious than that, and even if it's not, just the fact that it's just highlighting the fact that it could have been, even if he tests negative, he could have been positive for it. And someone at Parliament yesterday or Tuesday could still have been asymptomatically infectious and could still have passed it on to someone. And in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we may still see the effects of this, whether or not Alok Sharma himself has been positive. And it just thinks there was no gain in this for the government. All they've done is risk even more damage in the public eye. And, you know, they've already lost a massive chunk of their ratings. As Keir Starmer noted in Parliament yesterday, quoting YouGov, you know, one of the serious polling companies, they have never seen a drop in ratings for a political party in such a short time like this. And they're risking even more for no gain. And you, part of me thinks, as a Labour supporter, someone who's opposed to the Conservatives, ordinarily this should be quite good. If this was purely a political issue, it'd be quite good because they're demonstrating their incompetence. These people are utterly useless, and it's, you know, it's like they're helping Labour win the next election, which is still years away. But then there's another part of me thinking, but it's still years away. This is the government we've got to try and get us through the most serious healthcare crisis in 100 years. And they are utterly useless. They are incapable of intelligent thought. And we're stuck with them. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.